So as we jump back into now Enoch's ministry, he picks it up in verse 13. So great was the faith of Enoch that he led the people of God, and their enemies came to battle against them. And he spake the word of the Lord, and the earth trembled, and the mountains fled, even according to his command, and the rivers of water were turned out of their course, and the roar of the lions was heard out of the wilderness. Can you imagine this? You get this city that you've been working with, and you've been teaching these people, and they get so righteous, and they become so prosperous, so rich, that these other nations want to come and plunder this city. And as they come, Enoch defends them by the power of his word alone. And while we don't know exactly what this looks like, the clues that were given us there in verse 13, that had to be fascinating to watch Enoch defend the city using rivers turned out of their course and mountains moved and the cry of the wild beasts out of the forest. They can't attack this city and prevail because of the power of Enoch and his word, speaking for the Lord. Notice the bottom part of verse 13. So powerful was the word of Enoch, and so great was the word of the language which God had given him. Did you notice that? He's getting, it's all a reflection of God coming through Enoch. That invitation in last week's lesson, walk with me, I'll justify all your words. I'll make the rivers flee and the mountains move. But you've got to walk with me. Well, Enoch's done that, and now amazing things are happening. So rather than you watching this in the 21st century or studying this passage thinking, wow, that must have been really amazing for Enoch and for those people to watch these amazing miracles. That is true. We are not taking anything away from that experience back in that day. But brothers and sisters, the real power of that story is the mountains that God is going to move in your life. The rivers that He's going to help you turn out of their course by the power of your word that you've received from the Lord alone, whether it be in your individual life, in your family, in your career, in your church callings, in your interactions with loved ones or other people in your circle of influence. If you will just trust the Lord and move forward in faith with the things that He's given you and keep His commandments, live the gospel to the very best of your ability, then He is going to move mountains for you. He will move rivers. You will have help from the forests in a variety of symbolic ways as we move forward. If you look at verse 68, right there at the very, very, very end of this incredible chapter, the second to last verse, notice it says, "And all the days of Zion in the days of Enoch were 365 years." I think that's helpful for context to what you're saying here, that we read this story and we think, wow, he went up into the mountain, had this vision, came down, preached to the people, they all repented right then, they get rich, conquering armies come, and he defends the city. Wow, it all happened within that year. Do you really understand how long 365 years are? If you start doing math backwards from this year, you're going back a long time. So to put this in context, let me give you an example from our dispensation. In the October 2012 General Conference of our church, that was the 187th semi-annual conference of the church. So it put the church's age at 187 and a half years old, which happens to be exactly half of 365 years. So think about that. In 2012, we were at the halfway point of what Enoch was accomplishing in that city, living in the dispensation of the fullness of times. Brothers and sisters, this is significant because the Lord is doing his work now in the whole world. It's now globalized what in Enoch's dispensation was accomplished localized.
In one city.
In one city with one prophet who had that continuation. Don't expect that Zion and all these miracles are going to happen this coming week because we studied it collectively as a church for Come Follow Me. We move forward together, both individually and collectively on that covenant path. It took them a long time, and we don't know at what point in that progression that isn't it interesting, 365 years, that's how many days are in a year. So this is a year of years. We don't know when all of the specific examples happen here. We just know that after 365 years, it seems as when they're translated, they're taken up, and they were no more on the earth. Now, we shift gears down to, let's pick it up in verse 16. From that time forth, there were wars and bloodshed among them. These are all the people of the land. But the Lord came and dwelt with his people, and they dwelt in righteousness. I just love that line. They dwelt in righteousness. We're going to see it again here shortly. And the fear of the Lord was upon all nations. So great was the glory of the Lord, which was upon his people. That they don't dare anymore fight against Enoch and this city. Now, verse 18. And the Lord called his people Zion, because they were of one heart and one mind, and dwelled in righteousness, and there was no poor among them. What a beautiful description of a heavenly setting on the earth, where you don't have the same heart and the same mind. You'll notice we have one heart, one mind. We dwell in righteousness, and there's no poor among us. There's in the kingdom of God, there is this oneness. There's plenty of room inside of this congregation of the Lord for all kinds of unique abilities and capacities, and people who have different propensities and struggles and skills and successes. I love the fact that what God is doing here with Zion is exactly what nations have tried to do, create this unity. Realizing that some of you watching aren't from the United States of America, but it's interesting from a perspective here in the States. One of the founding principles of the United States of America is just that, the United States. It's that idea in the Latin of e pluribus unum, from many, we're going to make one. So we have, if you look at a map of the United States or a map of your country or wherever you live, it's that idea of you have all these different places, but we decide that we're going to come together and we're going to become unum, one. We're not going to focus on the pluribus, the individuality, and try to do our own thing. There are certain times when we say, you know what? We're going to come together in this context for Zion as a church, it's in the cause of righteousness. And as we do that, we're going to make sure there's no poor among us. And we're going to try to have our mind and our heart drawn heavenward and outward, rather than the world's invitation, which is to put all those arrows facing inward on me, me, me. What do I want? What do I need? What can you do for me right here, right now? This Zion perspective is at the foundation of what we're trying to do as a collective church across the world. What Enoch accomplished in this one city, and we just have to say, what a pleasure it is to be engaged with so many amazing people across this world who are striving to build up Zion on the earth.